In this video, we will discuss surface labeling. If you'd like to follow along with this video, please open the file 0514 surfacelabels.dwg located in the training folder as discussed in the Working with this dataset video. Civil3d provides dynamic labeling functionality. What this means is that any labels you add to Civil3d that are associated with the Civil3d object will update automatically. Let's look at this labeling functionality as it relates to surfaces. So if I select a surface first, in the Labels and Tables panel, I have the Add Labels dropdown. I can select these default labels here, or these initial labels. Just so you know, when you do just pick this and it runs the command, it uses the default styles as defined in the feature or command settings within the Settings tab. I recommend you select the Add Surface Labels tool, which opens up a dialog box which allows you to select a possibly different style that you may want. I'll make sure the feature is set to surface, which it does automatically, and let's go ahead and look at the different label types. Let's first look at slope. So these are the default styles that come with Civil3d, and of course you can add your own. In this case, I just want to do a %. So I will select Add. Again, when you don't know what to do, look to the command line window. It's asking me, do I want a 1-point label or a 2-point label? A 1-point label will simply add that label on top of a triangle, and it will read the slope direction on top of that triangle. And that's it. Let me hit Escape. We'll start that again. If I add a 2-point label, this will ask me for 2 points, which will then sit those 2 points on top of the surface triangles, and whatever the slope is between those 2 points, whether or not they cross different triangles, it does not matter. That is the slope that you will be given. So if I start at the top of the road here and go down, that is the slope from the top of the road here down to this lake area. If I hit Escape here and select it, this is one of the other really cool things about labels, is that they dynamically update based on where you move the label. So as I zoom in here, you'll see that as I move the label along, I'm going down that slope, so of course my slope label will become less and become a little flatter as you get closer to the actual point that is the second point of that label. The same thing applies to the 1-point label, except in this case, I simply move it and it will automatically change the direction and the slope based on the location on the triangle. So that's really very cool, right? Now, what's even cooler about this is the fact that I can use the copy command to simply copy labels wherever I want them to get a nice little analysis of what's going on here. So that's slope labels. Let's look at elevation labels. I'll select the spot elevation label type, and notice how you can do a label style for the actual spot elevation, as well as a marker if you so desire. If you don't want a marker, set this to none and you will not get a marker. I'll select that and select elevation only. Some of the default labels are elevation and a rise over run, and EL : the actual elevation. I'll just pick elevation only and we'll select Add. Because I don't have that surface selected again, it's asking me to select a surface, so I'll select my surface and then simply place that label. Again, the great thing about these labels is that they are dynamically updated. So I can simply move it by picking the grip here. It will automatically adjust the elevation based on where that label is located. And you can also copy these labels as well. One of the other really cool things about any label is I can actually select it, and then what I can do is I can actually edit this label text to have, let's say for this one, just specifically this label here, I want it to have a prefix of EL equals. So in the contextual ribbon, I can select Edit Label Text, and then right from within here, I can actually change any of the properties in this location. So I will go ahead and just type in this field here, EL equals. But notice, I could have added northing, easting, lat long, as long as the coordinate system is defined, etc., to this label and only this label. Click OK, and now I've got that prefix defined in there. If you want to go back to the default label, you can simply click on Clear Label Text, and it'll basically go back to the original label styles definition. Of course, you can do contours. So let's see what a contour does. So of course you have existing, minor, and user-defined contours. In this case, I only have major and minor contours. So I will just click Add here, and let's see what it does. I'll simply select at this point there, a contour. And notice how it just puts that in there. I could keep going here if I wanted to, and it'll automatically put the label along that contour. So what really is happening? What's really happening is Civil3d is simply adding what's called a contour label line. This is a dynamic line that if I were to stretch this across all the contours, it will automatically display the contours along that label line. So that is all that it's doing, is adding a little tiny line across that contour. Now, of course, if you want to do this in a global way, you can do this with the command of contours multiple at interval, and we'll do that in a second here. I want to get rid of all the little tiny contour label lines. Select one, right-click, select similar, and it just selects all of them for me, and then I can just use the delete key, and those labels are gone. So let's go ahead and choose the contour multiple at interval. I'll keep the default styles. Of course, I can change them to whatever styles are available. Click Add, and then because my surface is no longer selected, it's asking me to pick a surface. I'll select it, and then it says Pick First Point. So what it's asking you is to define a line or lines of points to start the contour labeling process. So I just went across all my contours, and then here's the interval that you want, and this is totally up to you. The default is 100. I'll press Enter, and it will automatically add contouring every 100 feet. If you don't get the desired results, or if it's too much, then you can select similar as I did before and delete those contour labels and start over again. All right. So notice how I have, just like that, contour labeling across every 100-foot distance. If I'm displaying too many of the minor contours and I only want the major to display, here's a nice little tip. I'll select one, right-click, select similar, and then what I can do is go to the Properties palette and tell Civil3d that for the minor contours, I do not want it to display. So I will say false, and just like that, I only have major contours. Just so you know, these contour label lines are still dynamic, and if they were to stretch across other contours, they would actually update the labeling along those contours. This concludes this video discussing surface labels.